Now, one last thing I'm going to share with you in this first lesson, which you're already starting off at a great start with AutoCAD, is how to add some text to this room. So to do that, let's go ahead and click here, and I'm going to type in MT for multi-line text, enter, and I'm going to draw a window. So I'm going to left click and left click again to kind of create a window box, and then I could type in whatever I want for my text. So let's call this my first room, or my first CAD room, and just left click out of that somewhere. And we can add some options to this. I'm going to left click once, and it allows me to kind of adjust that window box. And what I want to do is, let's double click, and it gives us some options now up here. A bunch of options just popped up, so I can change the style of font that I want. Oh, make sure you have all your letters selected, and you can start changing whatever font you want. And I'm going to leave it on that Arial. Let's go back to the Arial, wherever it went. Arial, and let's underline it. So let's click here for underline, and let's see if we can get it to center justified right there. And let's go ahead and click out, and I can make it snap to each side, so that way I know it is exactly in the center of the room. And I can hit M, enter for move, and left click once, right click once, and now it's asking for a base point, so it's for me to drag. So I can left click once, and I could drag it wherever I want. If I click F8, it removes it from the ortho. Click F8, locks it into the ortho, and I can just kind of center it in that room. Let's hit escape. Now let's go back to our paper space, and there we have our room again. Let's go ahead and plot. Let's go ahead and type plot, enter. Let's go ahead and click preview, and there we go. Now we have our room dimensioned and labeled. So just like that, you have created your first room in AutoCAD. You're on your way to becoming a pro with AutoCAD. We still have a long way to go, but I hope you enjoyed this first lesson, and I hope you stay tuned and keep listening to some of these lectures coming up, where we're just going to keep getting more and more in depth with AutoCAD. So thanks for watching so far, and I'll see you next lesson. Okay guys, so let's talk about layers. Here we have our layer options box here, and so far we've been drawing in the 0 layer. So all these lines that we have are in that 0 layer. Let me hit escape. I just selected those for no reason. Okay, so let's create some different layers. So I'm going to go ahead and left click here to open our layer properties box, hopefully. And it's way over here on my other screen. There we go. So we only have 2 different layers in our window at the moment. We have our 0 layer, which is kind of the default layer. You don't really want to draw in 0 layer, but you know, in this case we did. And then here we have def points. Def points will never print out. It's just something that you can draw things that you don't want to come out when you print. So you can put that on def points layer. So let's create a new layer. To do that, I'm going to click here on this check mark for a new layer. Actually, that's to make it current. Here we go, new layer. And let's call this our wall layer. Enter. And let's change the color. So I'm gonna click and drag these windows here. Kind of see a little bit more what these are saying. Okay, so all right. So now we want our wall layer. We want it to plot out. So make sure that is selected. And if I double click, it makes that the active layer. And let's go ahead and click on color, and we can change the color of it. So I'm going to go ahead and select our index color 3, which is this green. Click OK, and let's go ahead and close out of this. Now let's say I want to move all my wall layers to that or all these layers I did here, I want to move them to the wall layer. So I'm going to left click and select all of these, click and drag. So I'm clicking all of those. And right now, since they're selected, it's showing that they're all in the 0 layer. So it's easy to move them. All I have to do is click here, move to walls, left click again, just hit escape, and I already moved them to the correct layer. So what about dimensions? Let's create a layer for dimensions. So I'm going to left click here. Let's go ahead and create another layer. And I call this dimensions. Enter. Do we want it to be green? Let's not do green. Let's do this index color 9. Click OK. And let's create another one for our text. And I'll just type text, enter, and we'll go ahead and click here. Let's go ahead and make this yellow and OK. All right, so let's go ahead and close out of our layer box here. And to move it to that layer, I'm going to go ahead and click here. Click here, move it to text, hit escape. Let's select our dimensions and move those to dimension layer. So now everything is on a separate layer. Now if I want to turn off a layer, I could go here and I can say, you know what, I don't want to see my text, so I can click off. And let's see, it didn't do it because, why didn't I do it? I think it's because it's the active layer. Not sure about that. Let's back out. Oh yeah, okay, it did turn it off. And then the same thing I could do with dimensions. Let's say I don't want to see my dimensions. And there we go. So we turned off our dimensions and our text. So however you want, you can turn these on and off. You can also freeze them, which is kind of the same as turning off and on. But sometimes if things are in groups, you may want to freeze it rather than turn on or off. It gets a little complicated, but just know that they kind of work the same. And the reason why I didn't turn off right now is because it is the active layer. AutoCAD does not like turning off the active layer. So let's go ahead and move this to 0 layer since nothing is on there. And I could go here and let's go ahead and freeze our wall layer. And there we go. We can't see that. Another thing we can do is we can lock our layers. So let me click out of here. Let's go to click on this lock. And what it does, it kind of dulls the layer in your view. And if I wanted to erase everything, so I want to hit E for erase, enter. Let's say I select everything within this box and right click, it deleted everything except for my walls because they're locked. So locking a layer prevents you from deleting it. And I just hit Control Z is an undo command. So definitely want to write that one down or remember that, Control Z, undo. So that's a brief overview of layers. That's really how most people use layers. You just want to keep things on different groups, different layers. And I drew everything on 0. You never really want to do that. So really you should set up your layers first and move to the current layer. Let's say if I wanted to draw walls, just make sure that is the layer that is active in this window here. Or I could type in LA and it'll bring up that layer window, and you just double click to make whatever layer you want the active layer. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of all that, and there we go. So now we have some different layers in our drawing. Okay, now let's add a door to our room. To do that, I'm going to use the line tool. I'm going to go ahead and click over here to line. I'm in the wall layer, and I'm going to snap to the midpoint of this wall and drag my mouse this way. And I'm actually going to zoom in, drag it to the midpoint of that other. So it's just, it's a 90-degree line. Just hit escape. And I'm going to hit O for offset. And I'm going to offset 3 feet. So 3 apostrophe enter. And that gives me a 3-foot offset. So I'm going to click once here, drag my mouse in the direction I want that offset, left click once, and there I've offset a line at 3 feet. Now I'm going to trim this out by typing trim and enter, trim, enter. I'm going to left click once, highlight all those walls, left click again, and then I could hit enter. And now it's going to ask what lines I want to trim out. So I'm going to left click once, left click again, and there I've cut out that opening for my door. Okay, so now I want to draw a door. So what I'm going to do is, let's create another layer for doors. Let's go to layers. Let's go ahead and create another one. Let's call it door. Enter. And I'm going to give this a different color. Let's give it magenta. Click OK. Escape out of that. And draw a line. Hit L, enter. And I'm going to snap to that corner. Oops, I'm not in that layer. I forgot to go to the layer. Let's go to door. And hit escape. Hit L for line. I'm going to draw this 3 foot out. And let's go. Before I do any offset, I just we'll hit O for offset. Oops, O for offset. Let's type in 1.5 inches. Enter. And I'm going to click and offset this direction, 1.5. Hit L for line, L, enter. And I'm just basically going to connect these ends. Let's go over here, hit L, or repeat line. So what I did there is I right clicked. Sorry, that was a habit. I should explain things when I do it. So if you right click, it kind of gives you the option of selecting some recent commands. So I'm going to say repeat the line command, do left click, and basically it puts me in that command again. So I can select the endpoint to endpoint, hit escape, and there I have a door. So I want to create an arch now. So I'm going to use a circle command. I'm going to type in C for circle, enter, and by default it's going to ask me for the midpoint of the center of the circle. So I'm going to click once, left click once here, and I'm going to drag the mouse out till it hits that other side there, left click again, and now I want to trim this out. So I'm going to hit trim. I want to select this line and this line, hit enter, and then I want to cut out that piece and escape out of that. And there you go, I've created my 3 foot door. Now a 3 foot door is a pretty common thing that I'm going to want to use again. So I want to create this into a block or a template that I can insert a time and time again into my drawing. So to do that, I'm going to create a block. So I'm going to type in block, enter, and it brings up a box here, and it's asking me for the name of my block. So I'm going to say, you know what, this is a 3.0 by 6.8 door. And I'm going to click, well actually before I click OK, it's asking me a couple of things. I can specify the base point of this, so I have to select the objects, and that gives me some other options for annotative stuff like that. I'm going to leave these alone. These are the only two I want to mess with. Base point, want to make sure that's checked, and I want to select the objects. I'm going to go ahead and click here, and let's see, convert to block, yes. Everything else, inches, everything else is okay. So click OK, and specify the base point. So I'm going to select right here, and then it says select the objects. So I'm going to select all of these lines that I drew for my door and click enter, and I believe that's it. It said it found 5, and I believe it created our block. And if we click there, we can see that this is now a block. Now what I want to do is, instead of this single door, I want it to be a double door. So I'm going to hit offset, enter, type 3 feet, enter, click this line, offset it to the left, click again, and let's go ahead and hit trim, enter, select this line, right click, trim out those pieces, and let's go ahead and erase this middle piece as well. Okay, now I want to insert that door that I just did. So I'm going to hit I for insert, and let's see what happened. Oh, that did not work. So let's go to insert block. Actually, I can select it right there, so that's really convenient. Let's go ahead and drag it over here. So it's asking me for the point where I want to insert it. So I'm going to click here, and That's fine. Okay, so it's already in there, but it's facing the wrong way. So I want to mirror this the other way. So it's a mirror. I'm just going to type in mirror, or MI for short, enter, select the object, right click once, hit that midpoint. I'm going to drag the mouse in the direction that I want that to mirror for that mirror line, and I'm going to left click once, and then it's asking me, do you want to erase the object? So it'll give me the option to create a new one or just flip the existing one. So do I want to erase source object? Yes, I do. So I'm going to hit enter, and there we go. Now I have my double 3.0 door in my room. And to save your file, what you have to do is go over here to the AutoCAD Lite logo, click here, and you can hit save or save as, and we just want to save it as a DWG file. And just find a location wherever you want to save it, and we'll just name it my first CAD drawing. And here you can change the version of AutoCAD you want to save it to. So if you're transferring and sending it to other people, you may want to go to a lower version. If not, you may want to keep it at the latest version available here, which is 2018. Even though we are in AutoCAD 2021, it still saves it down so that other versions can open it up. So I'm just going to leave it down to 2010 and click save.